The self-destruction mode has been activated in Russia. It happened with difficulty, later than everyone expected, but the process of de-Russification of the world has begun. And it was personally set in motion by Putin.
It sank.
In the third year of the full-scale war, the accumulated hatred and aggression broke through the dam, and uncontrolled waves of violence flooded the streets of Russia. Russians are taking out other Russians no less effectively than FPV drones. And these incidents are happening on a massive scale.
Why are people running over there? What's going on?
These are scenes from the Moscow region. People are fleeing in terror and hiding in the bushes. No, unfortunately, it's not because we've been allowed to strike Russia with Western weapons.
That's sad.
People are running away because of a massive brawl among schoolchildren. 2 girls had a falling out, and each brought about 70 people with them to settle the score. The school kids fought in style and on a grand scale, even using firearms. As long as the kids are entertained, at least it's not with knives and brass knuckles. Although, for many years, the opposite has been promoted in Russia. From kindergarten, children are fed ideas about the law of the strongest, and a cult of war and death is instilled in them.
I support our president's decision to liberate Donetsk and Luhansk and to drive the Nazis away from the borders of the Russian Federation.
Hatred and aggression are being popularized at the very highest level. You tore it up, you gave a list, what did you do then? Have you ever heard of a mass brawl among school children in the Netherlands, no? Strange. Maybe it's because in their schools they don't teach kids how to properly stab someone with a knife or how to shoot an assault rifle. And besides, their teachers aren't ex-convict maniacs with PTSD.
Patriotic lectures for children are given not just by a brutal murderer, but also by a pedophile. Here on Krasnoarmeyskaya Street is where Nikita Semyonov's house is located. You can see it there, behind the green fence. It's an old, dilapidated building. The toilet, of course, is outside. Inside the house, there's only one room. The sleeping area is separated by a curtain. Everyone who has been there describes the place as disgusting and horrible.
In Russia, an entire conveyor belt for producing moral degenerates has been built, and the first batches of moral deviants give rise to the next ones.
Everyone keeps asking me why I cut my hair short. Here's my answer. I want to join the army, Kutuzov's army.
Some of the children were driven into the UnderEmpire and others into AUE. That's a children's public organization run by criminals and crime bosses.
That's when, for example, young people on the outside are raised according to criminal codes, and in prison it's your cellmates who do the teaching.
Involved people home, I involved convicts before their release. Those with how many? I don't know how many people there are from the statements, but it's quite a lot.
And then people in the swamps are surprised. Why do people behave so aggressively? It's because that's normal for them. It's normal to start a mass brawl over a fight with a girlfriend. It's normal to beat the mother of your child while holding your child in your arms. It's normal to practice vigilante justice.
Officially, I declare a blood feud, and I want everyone to understand the weight of these words. As a Chechen, this is not just a statement, it's a matter of deep tradition and honor. I am a Chechen, that's it. And that identity means...
A government official threatens another official with a blood feud on television. This means that the lynching attraction is officially open. In the Chelyabinsk region, a mob staged a pogrom against the Roma. The enraged defenders of traditional values could only be dispersed by riot police.
So what are They're Russian citizens, so deport all of us then.
An ethnically motivated massacre broke out because 2 Roma teenagers were suspected of murdering a Russian woman taxi driver. People didn't wait for an investigation or a court decision, God forgive them, but grabbed knives and went to attack the outsiders. And we've seen something like this before. No, not in the Netherlands either, but in Dagestan. There, a mob made up exclusively of citizens from the country that claims to be fighting global Nazism single-handedly carried out a pogrom against Jews.
Why special forces, brother?
I'm after the Jews.
After the Jews?
Agreed.
That legendary shot where they're searching for Zionists inside an airplane turbine is definitely hanging in hell on the wall of Hitler's personal torture chamber.
So what is our motherland if someone is willing to give their life for it? And I don't even love it. But if it's worth someone giving their life for it, and for me, then how am I supposed to go on living? If even then you can't change or alter your attitude toward your country, then what is there left to believe in? You are nothing. You are zero.
Not long ago, Kadyrov's men staged a shootout straight out of the TV series Brigada right in the center of Moscow. And everything was fine. For Russian citizens, it was just another ordinary event. The 90s, which Putin loved to use to scare Russians, haven't just come back, they've crashed into the swamp with both feet.
Many people punch wrong. They try to show off. Don't do that! Your arm just needs to move naturally. See, it was here. Now it's there. Also, it's important to understand how to breathe when you punch.
Russia has a lot of dumb myths. That it's 1,000 years old, that Stalin was an effective manager, that Popov invented the radio. But the funniest one is that Russia is united and indivisible, and that the Russian people have all rallied around their leader in a single impulse.
I'm definitely going to vote for Putin.
Me too. Me too.
In Russia, everyone hates everyone. Caucasians hate Russians, Russians hate Caucasians. Priests hate women and quadrobears. Soldiers at the front hate their commanders. Commanders hate the soldiers' wives and mothers because they ruin their mood and make it unpleasant to send their men into meat grinder assaults.
I buried my son, my own. My boy was 23 years old and he had 2 children. I have 4 grandchildren. I would have another child, but not for war.
The tangle of hatred is endless. Moscow hates migrants, and all of Russia hates Moscow. And that's not even counting the communal riots, which Russia barely survived last year.
At the moment, the temperature in my room is 6 degrees. Tell me, how is it possible to survive in such temperatures?
Winter is coming, which means pipes will burst and so will the patience of the common folk. The common folk in Russia are certainly patient, but when you start freezing to the toilet seat, your love for the Tsar drops below 0. The endless streams of corpses and maimed soldiers returning from the front only fuel the hatred. Those who are lucky enough to survive and return to their homeland do not find at home the greatness for which they gave their arms and legs. So at the very least, they long for respect and honor, but instead they hear, "We didn't send you there, you fool." And so begins the uncontrollable self-destruction of the Russian world.
What a joke.
And to make matters worse, as luck would have it, everything in the economy is going according to plan. And as we know, whatever Putin plans means death for Russians.
That's a bold statement. Of course, I won't be checking it.
Inflation in the country richest in natural resources has shot up to a place Russians will never reach the moon. Essential goods have started disappearing from store shelves. Butter now costs more than the life of a Russian soldier in a trench, although it's always been more expensive.
The prices are just terrible, honestly.
Lyudmila Maximovna is not thrilled about the price of butter.
The central bank threw up its hands and said, "We surrender." Of course, we'll raise the key interest rate to 21%, but that won't save the situation anymore. We've hit rock bottom, and the leaky, rusty tub called Putin's Russia is plunging into the abyss as fast as vodka is absorbed in Medvedev's body.
That salary, frankly speaking, is not small by the country's standards, the average one if you take it, for example. It allows you to buy a significantly larger number of bottles.
Russia will not survive the combination of all these factors. There will be riots, and not just one. People have turned the streets into Somalia because they no longer trust the state. The institution of the state in Russia has discredited itself. For decades, Putin has been robbing the country with impunity and tightening the screws more and more, justifying it by claiming that he is the only one who can guarantee the safety of Russians. Security was the only product Putin was selling to Russians. So, Russians, how safe do you feel living like this? Was it worth voluntarily becoming powerless slaves for this?
Before the start of the special military operation, there were no drone attacks on Russian territory, no shelling of Russian cities, and no foreign troops occupying Russian land.
I'll start with Russia's security, because for me that's the most important thing. You mentioned drone strikes and so on. Yes, that didn't happen, but the situation was much worse.
Of course, Kurak is confused and is spouting utter nonsense. Hundreds of thousands dead, hundreds of thousands maimed, daily bombings of Russian cities, parts of Russian territory seized by a foreign army, harsh economic sanctions, rampant crime in the streets. Lynch quotes all of this, incredibly, is what they now call security. And all of it, ultimately, simply because Putin didn't like that Western leaders were not speaking to him as an equal. But how else are they supposed to talk to a thug in a suit who illegally seized power and has lost his mind from Botox leaking into his brain?
The situation was that in response to our constant, continued and repeated proposals and efforts to establish diplomatic and official contacts and relations with the countries of the Western world, we were, time and again, always firmly told to know and remember our place. I can tell you this quite definitely. So it all seemed kind enough, but in principle they always put us in our place.
Putin personally admitted that he plunged Russia into hell because of his own resentment. Now it will sting him even more when this whole misunderstanding called the Russian Federation starts collapsing like the doors on a trolley bus.
Natalia, the Marines! I'm getting behind the wheel right now, and you're getting thrown out of here!
For many years, Russians were systematically pumped full of hatred and anger, and constantly fed myths about being a chosen people, a special path, a divine leader, a messiah figure, in short, all that fascist nonsense. Russians were sicked on Ukrainians, Georgians, Americans, and Germans like attack dogs, specifically taught to hate gays, dissenters, and individuals of other faiths.
I think that simply finding individuals who are gay or who are accused of promoting homosexuality among teenagers is not enough of a consequence. In my opinion, they should also be completely banned from donating blood and sperm. And furthermore, if they happen to die in a car accident, their hearts should not be used for transplants, but instead should be buried in the ground.
And Putin really succeeded at that, achieving his goal of spreading division and animosity. But hatred never targets just one group or community. If you teach someone to hate Ukrainians and allow them to kill without consequence, that same person will eventually turn their hatred and violence toward others as well. They might do the same to their wife, their neighbor, or even just a random passerby on the street, showing how hatred spreads and harms everyone.
You and your buddy, I'll just. Right now, all right? Listen, got it? Not being Russian is a disgrace, Russia. What does that even mean? What are you talking about? Huh? Did you say Leonarchenko Station? Some guy just attacked me in the metro and said, "You disgrace the Russian people." He said, I'm going to. He just yelled at the whole train car, kicked me out. Everyone just watches and laughs.
It all started with small riots. Then there will be even bigger and more widespread riots across the country, followed by increasingly intense uprisings, and then, eventually, everyone will march on Moscow to loot, seek vengeance, and settle old scores. After that comes a civil war, the complete collapse of the state, and finally, perhaps, a bright and hopeful future for our planet.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.